The galactic Concord had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. It was a union of the oldest and most powerful species in the known universe. They had discovered faster-than-light travel, while humans were still living in caves and hunting with stone tools. They had built empires that stretched across millions of star systems. They had seen countless young species rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore dot. So when humanity finally left their small blue planet and ventured into the darkness between stars, the galaxy did not tremble. It did not prepare for war. It did not even feel curious. The galaxy simply laughed. Ambassador Kepher of the Vethrani hegemony was the first to see the human delegation arrive at the Great Assembly. He was a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms. His people had conquered 1,000 worlds. Their warships were legendary. Their technology was ancient and powerful beyond human understanding. He watched the human ambassador walk into the massive chamber. She was small, fragile. She had only 2 arms and soft skin that would tear at the slightest touch. Behind her walked her guards, wearing simple armor and carrying primitive weapons. Kepher turned to his aide and let out a sound that his translator rendered as laughter. "Look at them," he said. "They walk as if they belong here." The Great Assembly was held in a station the size of a small moon. 4,000 representatives from 200 species filled the chamber. There were the Morat, beings made of living crystal who could grow their ships from asteroids. There were the Kritheks, massive reptilian warriors whose empire was built on blood and conquest. There were the Fenari, ancient insects who had been traveling between stars for 50,000 years. And now, there were the humans. 32 ships in their entire navy. Their largest vessel, the UN Perseverance, was barely 400 meters long. By Concord standards, it was not even a warship. It was a shuttle. A toy dot, the Vethrani fielded dreadnoughts that were 12 kilometers long. The Morat had living ships that could eat moons. The Kritheks battle stations could crack planets in half. Humanity had brought a toy fleet to the table of gods. The human ambassador, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chun, approached the central platform. She was 60 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. She had learned 17 alien languages. She had studied every species in the Concord. She knew exactly what they thought of her people. She did not care. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity comes before this assembly to request membership in the Galactic Concord. We offer our friendship, our knowledge, and our desire for peace." For a moment, there was silence. Then the laughter began. It started with the Kritheks delegation. Their leader, a Skald warrior named Admiral Sirith, slammed his clawed fist against his seat and roared with amusement. The sound spread like a disease. The Vethrani joined in. Then the Morat, their crystal bodies chiming with what passed for humor among their kind. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sound of 4,000 aliens laughing at the tiny creatures from the small blue. World. Ambassador Kepher rose from his seat. The chamber grew quiet. He was one of the most respected voices in the Concord. When he spoke, others listened. "Let them sit at our table," he said, spreading his 4 arms wide. "Every empire needs jesters." The laughter returned, louder than before. Dr. Chun stood perfectly still through all of it. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes moved slowly across the chamber, taking in every laughing face, every mocking gesture. She was memorizing them. All of them. In the end, humanity was granted something called provisional observer status. It was a polite way of saying they were too small to matter. They could watch the proceedings. They could speak if called upon. But they had no vote, no power, no respect. They were a joke, a curiosity, a primitive species that had somehow stumbled into the stars before they were ready. The Concord did not bother to conquer Earth. there was no point. Humanity had nothing worth taking. Their planet was small. Their resources were limited. Their technology was laughable. Conquering them would be like a giant stepping on an ant. Easy but meaningless. So they let humanity exist. They let them build their tiny ships and explore their little corner of the galaxy. Sometimes, Concord vessels would pass through the Sol system and the crews would look at Earth the way a person might look at a zoo exhibit. How cute, how quaint, how utterly insignificant. For 30 years, humanity endured this treatment. They smiled at the insults. They nodded at the condescension. They attended every assembly meeting and sat quietly in their observer seats while the real powers made decisions that shaped the galaxy. They watched. They listened. They learned. And in secret, they built. Beyond Neptune, hidden in the asteroid fields at the edge of the solar system, something was growing. Massive orbital shipyards worked day and night. Millions of workers lived in secret stations, their existence hidden from the galaxy. The greatest minds in human history worked on problems that the Concord believed were impossible for such a young species to solve. Fleet. Admiral Helena Jang oversaw the project. She was a small woman with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She'd have been 25 years old when the galaxy laughed at humanity. She had stood in that chamber and watched as 4,000 aliens mocked everything her species had ever achieved. She had made a promise to herself that day, a quiet promise that she shared with no one. Humanity would never be laughed at again. Every week, she received reports from the shipyards. Every week, the numbers grew. Hulls were completed. Weapons were installed. Systems were tested. The project had no official name in any database. The workers simply called it the Colossus program. The galaxy continued to ignore humanity. The Concord continued to treat them as a joke. Ambassador after ambassador attended the Great Assembly, smiled politely, and returned home with detailed reports on Concord technology, tactics, and weaknesses. 30 years passed. Dr. Sarah Chun retired and then died, never having seen her work completed. But before she passed, she visited Admiral Jang one final time. How much longer? The old ambassador asked. Jang looked at the holographic display showing the shipyards. Dozens of massive shapes floated in the darkness, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Soon, Jang replied. Very soon. Chun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had been mocked and dismissed and treated like nothing for her entire career. Good, she said. Make them remember us. Jang nodded slowly. They will remember us for 1,000 years. In the cold darkness beyond Neptune, the ships waited, silent, patient, ready. The galaxy had laughed at it. Earth's Navy. It would not be laughing for much longer. Admiral Sirith of the Krithx Dominion was bored. He had conquered 17 worlds in his career. He had burned cities and enslaved billions. He had risen through the ranks of the most brutal military in the galaxy through strength, cunning, and an absolute willingness to do whatever was necessary. Now he sat in his command chair aboard the Devastator, flagship of the Third Fleet, and stared at a holographic map of a tiny solar system. So, the humans called it. A yellow star with 8 planets orbiting around it. On the third planet, a species of soft, weak creatures had built their civilization. Sirith found them amusing. He had watched recordings of the day humanity first arrived at the Great Assembly. He had laughed along with everyone else. Such small creatures. Such fragile bodies. Such pathetic ships. But lately, Sirith had grown hungry for conquest. The Concord had placed too many restrictions on expansion. Too many species were now protected by treaties and agreements. A warrior needed to fight. A predator needed to hunt, and humanity was not protected by anyone. He activated the communication system and recorded his message. His scarred face filled the screen, his yellow eyes gleaming with cruel anticipation. "People of Earth," he began, his voice deep and rumbling. "I am Admiral Sirith of the Krithx Dominion. Your species has existed at the edge of civilized space for 30 years now. You have contributed nothing. You have achieved nothing. You are nothing." He let those words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "The Dominion has decided that your species will serve a purpose. You will provide workers for our mining colonies. 40% of your population will be collected and redistributed to locations where they can be useful. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. You have 7 days to prepare your people for transport." Sirith leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the bridge. "If you refuse, we will turn your world to glass. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Every man, woman, and child on your planet will die screaming. And the galaxy will not lift a finger to help you because you are small and weak and nobody cares about the fate of insects." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You have 7 days. Choose wisely." The message was broadcast across every channel. It reached every screen on Earth. Billions of humans watched the reptilian admiral threaten their entire species with slavery or extinction. The response from the Galactic Concord was exactly what Sirith had expected. Nothing. A few representatives expressed mild concern. The Vethrani ambassador suggested that perhaps the Krithx were being slightly excessive, but no one offered to help. No one threatened consequences. No one cared. Humanity had no allies. Humanity had no protection. Humanity had a navy of 31 ships that would be destroyed in seconds by a real fleet. Or so the galaxy believed. Fleet Admiral Helena Jang received the Krithx ultimatum in her office aboard the Neptune station. She watched it 3 times, her face showing no emotion. Then she called a meeting of her senior commanders. They gathered in a room that did not officially exist, aboard a station that appeared on no maps. 12 admirals and generals, the highest-ranking officers in Earth's true military command. They had all spent decades preparing for this moment. "The Krithx have given us 7 days," Jang said calmly. "They expect us to surrender or die. They believe we have no other options." Admiral James Okonkwo, commander of the 1st Colossus Squadron, leaned forward. "How many ships are they sending?" 200 warships. A fraction of their fleet. They think it will be more than enough. General Maria Santos, head of tactical operations, allowed herself a small smile. "They have no idea what they are walking into." Jang nodded. "The Colossus program has been waiting for 30 years. Our ships are ready. Our crews are trained. The only question is whether we reveal ourselves now or wait for a better moment." The room fell silent. Every person there understood what this decision meant. Once humanity showed its true strength, the galaxy would never see them the same way again. There would be no going back to being the quiet observers in the corner. Admiral Chung Wei, the youngest commander present, spoke up. "If we wait, billions of our people will be taken as slaves. We cannot allow that. And if we act," Jang replied, "we announce to the entire galaxy that we have been deceiving them for 3 decades. Every species will see us as a threat. Some will try to destroy us before we grow stronger. Let them try," Okonkwo said quietly. "That is exactly why we built the fleet." Jang looked around the room. She saw determination in every face. Fear too, but that was natural. Only fools felt no fear before battle. What mattered was what you did despite the fear. "Very well," she said. We send our response to Admiral Sirith. Then we activate the Colossus protocol. The response was broadcast 6 hours later. It appeared on every screen in the Sol system and was transmitted directly to the Krithek's fleet waiting at the edge of human space. Admiral Jiang stood on the bridge of a ship that the galaxy did not know existed. Behind her, through the viewport, the massive shapes of the Colossus fleet hung in the darkness like sleeping giants. "Admiral Sirith," she began, her voice calm and steady. "I am Fleet Admiral Helena Zhang of the United Earth Navy. I have received your ultimatum and discussed it with my commanders." She paused, letting the moment stretch. "We decline." On the bridge of the Devastator, Admiral Sirith watched the tiny human female reject his demands. For a moment, he was too surprised to react. Then he began to laugh. The sound echoed through his ship as his crew joined in. "She declines," he roared. "The insect declines. Does she not understand what will happen to her world?" His tactical officer, a younger Krithek named Vorn, checked his sensors. "Admiral, the human fleet is moving to intercept us. 31 vessels." Sirith laughed even harder. 31? Against 200? They truly are mad. He waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Do not even bother raising shields. We will crush them without effort. Set course for Earth. We will burn their world and take the survivors as slaves. Perhaps watching their cities die will teach these creatures the cost of defiance." The Krithek's fleet moved forward, their weapons powered down, their shields inactive. Why waste energy on such a pathetic enemy? Admiral Jiang watched them approach on her tactical display. She saw their arrogance in every movement. They were not even treating this as a battle. They were treating it as an execution. She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships," she said, her voice carrying to every vessel in the hidden fleet. "This is Admiral Jiang. For 30 years, we have watched. We have waited. We have built. Today, the waiting ends." She took a deep breath. Colossus Protocol. Engage. Across the solar system, 7 massive ships began to power up. Systems that had never been activated came online. Engines that had never fired roared to life. Weapons that had never been tested locked onto targets. The Kritheks had come to destroy a species they thought was helpless. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The Krithek's fleet moved through space like a pack of hungry predators. 200 warships, each one bristling with weapons capable of reducing cities to ash. At the center of the formation flew the Devastator, Admiral Sirith's flagship, a vessel that had witnessed the death of entire civilizations. Ahead of them, the human fleet waited. 31 ships arranged in a defensive line between the Kritheks and Earth. The largest human vessel was barely 400 meters long. The smallest Krithek's warship was 3 times that size. Tactical Officer Vorn studied his sensor display with a bored expression. "Admiral, the human ships are holding position. They appear to be preparing to fight." Sirith snorted with contempt. "Let them prepare. It will make no difference. Signal the fleet to increase speed. I want this finished within the hour." The Krithek ships accelerated, closing the distance to their prey. On the bridge of the Devastator, the crew made jokes about how quickly the battle would end. Some placed bets on which ship would claim the first kill. Others discussed what they would do with their share of human slaves, though no one was watching the sensors closely. Why would they? The humans had nothing that could threaten them. That was why they did not see what was happening behind them, until it was too late. Space itself began to twist and tear. It was not the gentle ripple of standard faster-than-light travel. This was something different, something violent. The fabric of reality screamed as massive objects forced their way through from another dimension. Alarms exploded across every Krithek ship simultaneously. Vaughn's display lit up with warnings he had never seen before. His hands trembled as he tried to make sense of the readings. "Admiral," he said, his voice cracking. "Admiral, something is happening." Sirith turned to look at the main view screen. What he saw there would haunt him for the rest of his life. A ship was materializing 500 kilometers behind his fleet. But it was not like any ship he had ever seen. It was enormous, beyond comprehension. The Devastator was 2 kilometers long and was considered a powerful vessel. This thing was 47 kilometers long, 12 kilometers wide. A mountain of black metal covered with weapons that glowed with strange energy. The UN Colossus had arrived. Sirith stood frozen, his mind unable to process what his eyes were showing him. This was impossible. The humans had no ships like this. No one had ships like this. This vessel was larger than anything the Critics had ever built. Larger than anything the Vethrani had ever built. Larger than anything in the entire history of the Galactic Concord. Where did that come from? He whispered. Before anyone could answer, space tore open again. Another massive ship emerged. Then another. Then another. The Leviathan. The Behemoth. The Titan. The Goliath. The Prometheus. The Olympus. One by one, 7 impossible vessels folded into existence, forming a wall of human steel that blocked any escape route. Vaughn's voice was barely a whisper. "Admiral, I am reading energy signatures that are completely off our scales. Hull composition unknown. Weapon systems unknown. We have nothing in our database that matches any of this." Sirith finally found his voice. "That is impossible. The humans have no technology like this. They are primitives. They are nothing." "Admiral," Vaughn said slowly, "I do not think they are what we believe them to be." On the bridge of the Colossus, Admiral Jang watched the Critex fleet through the main view screen. She could imagine the chaos and confusion spreading through their ships. For 30 years, they had believed humanity was weak. Now they were seeing the truth. "Open a channel to the Critex flagship," she ordered. Her communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Jang spoke calmly, as if she were discussing the weather rather than the fate of an enemy fleet. "Admiral Sirith, I believe you demanded our surrender 7 days ago. You threatened to destroy our world and enslave our people. You called us insects. You said nobody would care about our fate." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I wanted to show you something before we continue. I wanted you to see what humanity has been building while the galaxy laughed at us. You looked at our patrol boats and science vessels and thought you knew our strength. You were wrong." Through the view screen, she watched the Critex ships breaking formation as captains tried to understand what they were facing. Some were turning to flee. Others were raising shields that would do nothing against weapons they could not comprehend. "For 30 years, we watched your Concord. We learned your technology. We studied your weaknesses. And we built ships that would make every species in the galaxy understand one simple truth. Humanity is not to be threatened." Admiral Sirith's face appeared on her screen. The arrogance was gone from his yellow eyes. In its place was something Jang had waited 3 decades to see. Fear. "What do you want?" Sirith demanded. "Name your terms. We can negotiate." Jang shook her head slowly. "You came here to enslave or murder 8 billion human beings. You gave us 7 days to accept our fate. You laughed at our weakness." She leaned forward, her eyes cold as the void between stars. "There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will only be a demonstration." She turned to her tactical officer. "Target their weapon systems and engines. Disable every ship in their fleet. Leave them alive. I want survivors to carry the message back to the Concord." The officer nodded. "Targeting solutions locked." Jang looked at the Critex fleet one last time. 200 ships crewed by beings who had never known defeat. They had come to destroy humanity and found themselves trapped by monsters they could not comprehend. Fire, the Colossus spoke. Her main weapon, a massive beam of concentrated energy that humanity had named the Judgment Lance, reached across the void and touched the nearest Krithek's warship. The vessel's shields flickered for less than a second before collapsing. Its engines exploded. Its weapons melted. The ship was disabled in less than 2 seconds. Then the other Colossus-class vessels opened fire. Beams of light crisscrossed the battlefield. Missiles that moved faster than anything the Kritheks had ever seen found their targets with perfect accuracy. One by one, the proud warships of the Dominion fleet were reduced to drifting. Powerless hulks thought the Kritheks tried to fight back. They launched every weapon they had at the human vessels. Plasma cannons fired. Torpedoes streaked toward their targets. Energy beams slammed into human shields. Nothing happened. The shields of the Colossus did not even flicker. Admiral Sirith watched his fleet die around him. Not die, he realized. They were being deliberately spared. The humans were not trying to kill them. They were humiliating them. Every shot was precise. Every attack targeted systems rather than crews. This was not a battle. This was a message. The Devastator shuddered as a human weapon struck her engines. The lights flickered. The hum of the power core fell silent. Sirith's flagship, the terror of 17 worlds, drifted helplessly in space. On the main screen, Admiral Jiang appeared once more. "The battle is over," she said simply. "Remember this day, Admiral. Remember what happens when you threaten humanity." Sirith had no words. For the first time in his long and bloody career, he had none. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's navy. Nobody was laughing now. The Battle of Sol had lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, 193 Kritheks warships drifted through space as broken, powerless wrecks. Their weapons were melted slag. Their engines were shattered ruins. Their shields had failed so quickly that most crews had not even had time to reach battle stations. 7 ships had escaped, fleeing into faster-than-light travel before the human vessels could disable them. Admiral Jiang had allowed this. She needed witnesses. She needed the story to spread. The Devastator floated among the wreckage, her hull scarred but intact. Inside, Admiral Sirith sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. His crew moved around him in shocked silence. No one spoke. What was there to say? They had come to enslave a primitive species. They had found something else entirely. A human shuttle approached the crippled flagship. It was a small vessel, barely large enough to hold a dozen passengers. Against the massive bulk of the Devastator, it looked like an insect approaching a mountain. But the mountain was broken now, and the insect represented the power that had broken it. Admiral Jiang boarded the Krithek ship with an escort of 20 soldiers in advanced combat armor. The Krithek's guards at the airlock made no move to stop them. What would be the point? Their weapons had proven useless against human technology. Their strength meant nothing against enemies they could not touch. Jiang walked through the corridors of the Devastator with calm confidence. She noted the damage her ships had caused. Precise, surgical. Her gunners had disabled the vessel without destroying it. They had killed no one unless absolutely necessary. This had been intentional. She wanted Sirith alive. She wanted him to carry a message. The bridge of the Devastator was large and dark, designed to intimidate visitors with its size and the massive throne-like chair at its center. Sirith sat in that chair now, but he looked small, defeated. His yellow eyes tracked Jiang as she approached. But he did not rise to meet her. "Admiral Sirith," Jiang said, stopping a few meters from his chair. "I believe we have matters to discuss." Sirith's voice was hollow when he spoke. How did you hide this from us?" The Concorde has watched your species for 30 years. We saw your ships. We knew your technology. None of this should be possible. Jiang allowed herself a small smile. You saw what we wanted you to see. Patrol boats. Science vessels. Ships that would make you laugh and look away. You were so convinced of your own superiority that it never occurred to you to look closer. She gestured at the viewport, where the massive shapes of the Colossus fleet could be seen in the distance. While you were laughing, we were building. While you were dismissing us as insects, we were studying your technology and improving upon it. We learned from every species in the Concorde. We took the best of what we found and made it better. Sirith shook his head slowly. But the resources, the workers, the time, building ships of that size would require everything we had. Jiang finished for him. Every spare resource, every brilliant mind, every secret facility we could construct. For 30 years, humanity has sacrificed comfort and luxury to build those ships. We lived simply so that we could build greatly. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. Do you know why, Admiral? Because we knew this day would come. We knew that eventually, some species would look at our small world and decide to take what we had. We knew the Concorde would not protect us. So we protected ourselves. Sirith was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since the Colossus first appeared. What do you want from us? Jiang clasped her hands behind her back. You will return to the Galactic Concorde. You will tell them exactly what happened here today. You will show them the sensor recordings from your ships. You will make them understand that the species they have been laughing at for 30 years is no longer weak. And then you will deliver a message from me to the Great Assembly. Jiang's voice hardened. Humanity is no longer asking for a seat at your table. We are building our own. Any species that threatens us or our allies will receive a visit from the Colossus fleet. We will not come to negotiate. We will not come to discuss terms. She leaned forward until her face was close to his. We will come for judgment. Sirith felt something he had not experienced in decades. His hands were trembling. This small, soft creature standing before him had just destroyed his entire fleet without losing a single ship. She had captured him without effort. And now she was telling him that this was only the beginning. The Dominion will not accept this humiliation, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Our leaders will demand revenge. Jiang straightened and shook her head. Your leaders will do nothing, because if they try, we will come to your homeworld. We will appear above your cities, just as we appeared above your fleet today. And we will demonstrate what happens when you do not learn from your mistakes. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. I am giving you your ship back, Admiral. The engines will be repaired enough to limp home. Your weapons will remain disabled. Consider it a gift. Sirith found his voice. Why? Why spare us? We came to enslave your people. Jiang looked back at him. For a moment, something almost like sympathy crossed her face. Because I am not like you. I do not destroy simply because I can. I do not kill simply because my enemy is weaker. She paused. And because I need you alive to deliver my message. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity is not to be threatened. Not now. Not ever again. She walked out, leaving Sirith alone on his broken bridge. The repairs took 3 days. Human engineers came aboard and fixed the Devastator's engines with casual efficiency. They spoke politely to the Krithek's crew, treating them not as enemies, but as students who had learned a difficult lesson. When the ship was ready to travel, Sirith ordered his crew to set course for Concorde space. As they limped away from the Sol system, he looked back at the human fleet one last time. The 7 Colossus-class ships hung in perfect formation, their weapons cold, their shields lowered. They did not need to threaten. Their very existence was threat enough. Beyond them, Sireth's sensors detected the shipyards hidden in the asteroid fields. Massive structures filled with more ships under construction. Dozens of hulls. Perhaps hundreds. This was not just a fleet. This was the beginning of an empire. The galaxy had created this moment by laughing at humanity, by dismissing them, by threatening them and expecting no response. Now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. Sireth turned away from the viewport and spoke to his navigator. "Take us home. I have a message to deliver." The Great Assembly had never been so quiet. 4,000 representatives from 200 species sat in stunned silence as Admiral Sireth's recording played on the massive central screen. They watched the Colossus-class ships tear through space like gods emerging from myth. They watched 200 Krithix warships, the pride of one of the galaxy's most feared militaries, reduced to drifting wreckage in 11 minutes. They watched humanity reveal its true face to the universe. When the recording ended, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched on and on, heavy with fear and disbelief. Ambassador Kethfer of the Vethrani hegemony was the first to find his voice. He rose slowly from his seat, his silver skin pale, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. 30 years ago, he had called humanity jesters. He had laughed at their tiny ships and primitive technology. He had dismissed them as insects unworthy of serious consideration. He was not laughing now. How? He asked, his voice echoing through the silent chamber. How did we not see this? The human ambassador rose to respond. She was a young woman named Priya Okonkwo, the daughter of Admiral James Okonkwo, who commanded the Colossus itself. She had been chosen for this moment specifically because of who her father was. Humanity wanted the Concord to understand that their new power was not an accident or a fluke. It was a family legacy, a generational commitment. You did not look, Priya said simply. You were too busy laughing. Her words struck the chamber like physical blows. Representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They remembered their own mockery, their own dismissals, their own certainty that humanity was nothing to worry about. For 30 years you ignored us, Priya continued. You treated us as a joke. You let species like the Krithix threaten us with extinction because you believed we were too weak to matter. You created the very situation you now fear. She let that sink in before continuing. My people learned something important during those 30 years. We learned that the galaxy does not protect the weak. We learned that treaties and alliances mean nothing when one side has no power. We learned that the only thing the Concord truly respects is strength. She gestured at the frozen image of the Colossus on the screen. So we built strength. We built it in secret, in silence, while you congratulated yourselves on how superior you were. And now we have more strength than any of you ever imagined possible. Admiral Sireth, who had been forced to attend as a witness to his own humiliation, spoke up. The human fleet is massive. Our sensors detected dozens more ships under construction. Perhaps hundreds. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Vethrani ambassador's face went from pale to white. Hundreds? Someone called out. That cannot be. Priya smiled. It was a cold smile, one she had learned from Admiral Jiang. The Colossus fleet is just the beginning. We have spent 30 years preparing for a war that you forced us to expect. Our shipyards can produce more vessels in 1 year than most species build in a decade. Our technology has advanced beyond anything you have seen today. She paused, looking around the chamber at the frightened faces. But we have not come here to threaten you. Humanity does not want war. We never wanted war. We wanted to be treated as equals. We wanted respect. We wanted a place at your table. Her voice softened slightly. You denied us all of those things. So now we are building our own table. and we are offering seats to anyone who has been treated the way we were treated." The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. What did she mean? Who was she talking about? Priya raised her hand for silence. The Kovani refugees who have been wandering the galaxy for centuries because no one would give them a home. The Mythene who labor as slaves on Krithek's mining colonies. The dozens of species the Concord has deemed too primitive to matter. She looked directly at Ambassador Cathfor. We are offering them protection. We are offering them membership in a new alliance. The Terran Compact. Cathfor found his voice. You cannot do this. The Concord has maintained galactic order for 12,000 years. You would tear that apart. Your order was built on fear and exploitation, Priya replied. You protected the powerful and abandoned the weak. You allowed slavery and conquest as long as the victims had no voice in your assembly. She shook her head. We are not tearing anything apart. We are simply offering an alternative. Any species that wants to continue with the Concord is free to do so. Any species that wants to join the Terran Compact is welcome. And if we try to stop you? Someone called out. Priya's smile returned, colder than before. I would not recommend that. In the weeks that followed, the galactic order shifted in ways no one had predicted. The Krithek's Dominion, humiliated and terrified, formally surrendered to humanity. Their military was shattered. Their leaders faced revolution from within, as citizens demanded to know how they had been defeated so completely. The Vethrani hegemony proposed a mutual defense alliance with humanity. It was a transparent attempt to avoid becoming the next example of human power. Humanity politely declined. They did not need allies who had watched them face extinction and done nothing. Instead, the Terran Compact grew. The Kovani were the first to join, accepting human protection with tearful gratitude. The Mythene followed after human ships appeared above Krithek's mining colonies and demanded the immediate release of all slaves. Other species came after, drawn by the promise of safety and equality. Fleet Admiral Helena Jang gave her final public address from the bridge of the Colossus. The ship was now stationed at the edge of Concord space, a permanent reminder of what humanity had become. For 30 years, you told us we were small, she said, her image broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Weak, insignificant. You laughed at our ships and dismissed our people. But you forgot something the universe taught humanity long ago. She paused, her eyes hard as stone. The ones who survive are not the biggest or the strongest. They are the ones who refuse to quit. They are the ones who keep fighting when all hope seems lost. They are the ones who turn weakness into strength and mockery into motivation. Behind her, through the viewport, the shapes of more Colossus-class vessels could be seen. 20 ships now, with more joining every month. The galaxy is on notice. Humanity does not forget. We do not forgive easily. And we never, ever stop building. She stood straighter, a small woman who commanded the most powerful fleet in the known universe. You had your chance to treat us as equals. You chose to laugh instead. Remember that choice when you look at our ships and wonder what might have been. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings sat in silence, contemplating the new reality they faced. The Galactic Concord still existed, but it was no longer supreme. A new power had risen, born from mockery and neglect, forged in secret shipyards and fueled by 30 years of quiet determination. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's Navy. Now the galaxy watched that Navy